Achilles and Hector, the fight that everyone waits for when they're reading the Iliad, and those who would have heard it being performed would have known what was going to happen, but still they would have been really entertained by it. And yet the fight is really, well, literally engaging. However, there's quite a lot that's going on behind the scenes, as it were, the themes that the two are invoking. And we can see that in the way that they discuss things with each other. And I want to pick up on that and exactly why Achilles is acting in quite a bizarre way. To start with then, how are these characters presented to us by Homer? Well, with Hector, you've got, I suppose, what you call the template hero or template exemplary warrior. He is respectful, he understands the importance of honour. In fact, prior to the fight, he could have escaped, but he decides not to because he's too worried about what people might say about him. And he's got his father in one really quite pitiful scene tearing out chunks of his hair saying, come in, you can escape. But he won't, and he casually sort of hangs around where he might be able to escape from and says, no, I've got to do this. This is something that has to be done. It's all about my honour. And so with that, we're given the real standard form hero or exemplary warrior from Homer. Now, when it comes to Achilles, things are very, very different. In fact, he's almost acting out of the conventional norms. He's in a really heightened state, and I'll come to that in a moment. That's pushing him, almost stepping outside those boundaries. And this beautifully manifests, or rather in a macabre fashion, in how the two discuss what will happen after the battle. Hector, in a wonderful piece of foreshadowing, asks Achilles to make sure that if he falls, which I think he knows he's going to, he'll be looked after in terms of burial, who will be afforded the normal rights as you'd expect. But Achilles says no. And Achilles doesn't just say no, he then tells Hector just how disrespected his corpse will be. And for a Greek audience, that had an extra level of horror to it. Because although I don't think anyone thinks doing what Achilles did with the body, dragging it around on the back of a chariot, not leaving it buried, that sort of a thing, no one thinks that's a good thing. But for the Greeks, that was a fundamental. Having the correct burial rites was something that was considered an absolute. There was no negotiation on it. So why exactly is Achilles behaving like this? Well, we actually can go to the beginning of the poem to understand this, because the poem is translated in a number of different ways. Most often it's along the lines of "Goddess, sing of the wrath of Achilles," something like that. Emily Wilson, I think, does a really good job because she translates it as "Goddess, sing of the catastrophic wrath." That's the really important thing here, because it wasn't just wrath. The Greek word menace can be translated as wrath, but largely speaking, it's something far bigger. It's not the sort of wrath that you might get annoyed or irked about something. This is something which is all-consuming, on a plane, on a level higher than mortals can really understand or experience. And it's that catastrophic wrath that we see through the engagement of the two, not through the physical, but through the verbal, that is driving Achilles on to being the sort of almost uncontrollable individual that he's become.